Good evening. I'll call to order the agenda meeting for the Township of Hampton Council for Wednesday, October 11th, 2023, and we'll start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Blackburn? Dr. Doherty?
Present.
Ms. Fritsch?
Present.
Mr. Kernick?
Present.
Dr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Speakman?
Present.
Ms. Blackburn is excused for this evening. All right, before we get into the agenda, I just want to let everyone in the audience know that we have received an extension request on the Fry Kane subdivision through December. So if you are here for that, we will probably not be discussing it much tonight. It will be postponed for a couple of months. All right, administration, please.
Thank you, Madam President. First item under administration is authorization to advertise public hearing date in accordance with the proposed 2024 budget. This is a housekeeping item you do on an annual basis. We always utilize the first meeting in December, thus the December 6th recommended date. And what you would be doing at the end of the month, of course, would be taking the appropriate steps to authorize that advertisement.
Anyone have any questions? I didn't think so, since it's pretty standard.
Item B is the proposed 2024 Capital Improvements Fund budget. Each year we always provide you with a list of projects. This is not the finalized budget document, but it does give you an idea of some of the ideas and some of the things that we're discussing internally. I would anticipate that during your budget workshop means if there's any specific questions, once it's been finalized, we can address them at that time. But if you have any in the meantime, please feel free to contact me, and I'll be more than happy to fill in the background behind the thought process for each and every one if you would like. Any questions initially out of the gate? Yep. Okay. Item C is advertisement of the 2024 budget ordinances. That's the tax millage ordinance, the actual budget ordinance itself, and the capital improvement ordinance. And again, this is a housekeeping item that you would be doing in conjunction really with item A. Any questions with regard to item C? Okay. Item D is a proposed budget development workshop date. I would recommend the 27th, which I believe is a Monday of November. If you need some time to take a look at it, it's fine. Because budget workshop means discuss personnel matters, they're technically an executive session. So you do have some time with regard to that.
That's the fourth Monday of the month, isn't that when you and Jerry and Bethany have EMS?
No, we have it on the 20th.
Third, okay, thank you.
Now, if that can't be doable,
Good on my end.
Good on mine.
What date?
Monday, the 27th of November.
There is an HSWA board meeting, but I don't need to go to that. I think that's fine.
In the evening, right?
Yes, we usually order dinner in.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, let's tentatively plan on that, and we'll verify the date with Bethany.
okay?
Actually, Jerry, you didn't say whether that works for you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Does it work for Ryan?
Oh, good point. Good point. Ryan, does that work for you? All right. All right, I'll verify it with Bethany. All right, public safety, since the chief is not here this evening.
I have nothing
Anything?
to add.
Okay. Community services.
Good evening, Madam President. The first item on the agenda is possible award of a contract regarding the Phase 1 Community Park Pond Enhancement Project. Bids are due October 19th, and we should have a recommendation for your agenda packet. Okay. Any questions?
Doesn't seem like it.
Next item is the PennDOT 5-year winter maintenance agreement and resolution. The agreement with PennDOT has expired, and this year would be the first of a 5-year new agreement. The only difference is it is a 5-year renewal. This year it's with 5 automatic renewals of 1 year each afterwards, so it's a 10-year, basically a 10-year agreement. It's 2% increase every year. And I have reviewed the list from the prior agreement of all the roads. all the same roads, their lengths and classifications have remained the same. So,
And just to add, we do not get compensated for the cost that we typically incur.
nowhere near it.
Never.
And there is occasionally, if it's an extremely bad winter and we do a lot of additional salting, they've been known to give us a little bit of a reimbursement, a little bit of a kicker after the fact.
When's the last time that happened?
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty good about that.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks.
Item C.
Yes, of course.
This technically is not on the agenda, but we're prepared to move ahead with some information and discussion with regard to the tennis courts. There was information that's been disseminated to you by myself, by Mr. Kernick, as well as I believe Mr. Seitz as well has provided some information. Put simply, we just don't feel comfortable with the tennis court situation. That being the case, at this particular time, we think the better thing to do would just be to reject all the bids and then to come up with a different strategy or different approach. Obviously, myself and engineering grossly underestimated the value of this project. We've been able to ascertain from other communities and other projects that the range is more really in the $350,000 to $400,000 category. However, there have been some discussions about how to alter the specifications moving forward would be in the better interest of the township. And I think there needs to be some time for possibly a committee of a few members of council and township staff to sit down, go over what needs to be contained within these particular documents. Also, you probably, as I said in my email last night, you probably want to consider the possibility of including the school district in that discussion as well, because of the fact that they will obviously be using the facility if they can do so. We have had discussions with the WPIL. We have emails with regard to all that. It is somewhat argumentative if asphalt is acceptable or not. We're trying to finalize that. What does seem to be the case is the modular systems is not. That they don't come right out and say no, but they do not also say yes. So that being the case, and because we're as far into the year as we are right now anyway, I just don't see the logic in moving forward. Mr. Seitz is here tonight. If you have any questions, you want to go over some of the discussions on the specifications, you can. If you want to wait, that's fine too, however you want to pursue it. But my recommendation at the end of the month will be just to reject them at this particular time because we're just not really ready to do them. And then also, if I could say real quick, if you take a quick look in the proposed capital budget, there is a tennis court project identified in there at the recommended value that I put in for the last night in the email.
And I will add what Mr. Walker said is, since Gateway's done this twice, we're going to take on the rebid at no cost to the township. So,
Okay, thank you.
we're welcome to work with you.
I know I asked you a loaded question yesterday, or rather I should say a complex question, which was how do our bid specifications compare to what those organizations consider a minimum, acceptable competition surface? I don't imagine you have answers yet.
Well, I don't have answers yet, and I did provide you with the one answer. I mean, I did reach out to the executive director of the WPIL on Monday, yesterday morning, and he was very gracious and very prompt to respond to my inquiry about what the cross-section is that the WPIL has for their courts. And in his email back to me, he refers to an organization called the National Federation of High Schools, who are the standards by which the WPIAL and the PIAA adopt. And the National Federation of High Schools then goes on to refer to the United States Tennis Association, which does not specify any cross-section of the courts based on the documentation that I have. But maybe we need to do a little more research with the United States Tennis Association. But then the United States Tennis Association refers to the International Tennis Association with a method for testing the surface that is installed in order for it to be certified for competition play. And there's a costs associated with it. It's $500 for the first court and $100 for each additional court to get the certification.
Just to have the certification.
To have the certification, and it has to be done by one of their approved testing agencies. So we still have some homework to do on that, and we'll dig into that deeper to see how the school districts get their adopted, and hopefully get to a conclusion as to the cross-section. So I know your question was a little loaded. I wasn't trying to avoid it, but there still needs to be some deeper digging.
I'm not surprised. I
Yeah.
only asked the question yesterday morning.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Of course.
And I know, I mean, if you go over there and you compare, say, the basketball courts to the tennis courts, what you can see is a lot of cracking, a lot of big cracking, like half an inch to an inch wide, like a large amount. I did a little, before the HAEE race, I walked over there and I did a little sketching. I came up with like 1,500 linear feet. In your specifications, your bid spec, you have 2,500 linear feet of trench drain. So you have a trench drain where you dig like a bucket width wide and you go down 16 inches and you put geotextile fabric in there and a piece of plumbing, a perforated pipe, and then you run that all the way. You don't have a detail for connecting it, but you say it needs to somehow connect at the existing storm drain. I'm just wondering why that was in there. Why did you feel that we needed that?
Well, I think, in all due respect, the way we looked at this was that since the tennis courts in the park are in a unique situation
Yeah.
in regards to their construction. They're in a bowl, or if you want to call it a bathtub, and there's drainage around the perimeter of the courts that's capturing that water that's coming off the slopes. And I think one thing we need to do is verify, maybe have the Department of Community Services look at those pipes to make sure they're functioning properly and don't have any blockage.
Okay.
But-
And it connects to a storm drain
Right.
somewhere on Topnick.
Right, somewhere on top of it.
Yeah.
I need to go back and look at the original construction drawings.
Yes.
When that was built. I mean, I was involved in the mill and resurface of those courts in 2014. And that's about the same time that the courts were resurfaced at the basketball and the
Wait, I'm
street
sorry.
That's
They have not, they've already been milled and resurfaced once?
what do you mean?
The tennis courts?
Yes, they have since their original construction.
So that cracking is since 2014?
Yes, and there was cracking before that also.
I mean, I gotta go with, there's no drainage. So even if you put that trench drain in, if it doesn't get down to that storm drain on Topnick, the water's not gonna go anywhere. It's still gonna be there. Okay, the other thing is you had like a fiber asphalt product,
Correct.
and I mean, one of the biggest cracks is actually right down the center where that separating fence is. And you had the, like a 2-foot strip. You didn't really address that crack.
Well, that crack was intended to be addressed with the drain and have the backfill per the detail, and then have the Tetra Tech fabric installed.
But there's no drawing that shows a plan of the trench drain. And the other thing here is, now this asphalt, I did a little research into that. I don't know that product. I do know fiber cement. Fiber cement has, because it's got fibers in it, it can get like a fuzzy surface.
Sure.
Typically, those color coats, I did actually look at the tennis specs. There are a couple of differences between what you had specified and what they did, including a 95% compaction rate for the gravel and no slag. They just went straight limestone. To your knowledge, what's underneath there? Was it compacted to 95%?
I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the original construction, which is many years before 2014, to verify what the inspection reports state.
Okay.
But the fiber that I had specified in the asphalt is called,
It doesn't matter.
Okay, but
There's
what
a
it is-
bunch of them.
What it does, it's a plastic fiber that melts into the asphalt.
Yeah.
And doesn't give you that, I know what you're saying about the fuzzing with the concrete, because I have that at home.
Yeah.
With my concrete, but what happens with the fibers that go in the asphalt, they melt into the asphalt when it's being mixed. The other method, instead of using the fibers, you can get a modified polymer asphalt cement that would do the same thing.
Well, to your knowledge, is that color coat, I mean, typically they'll test it, its adherence. I mean, it's not, I'm not a civil engineer, but I am an architect.
Right.
Typically, when you coat a flooring product or a surface like that, they do testing. To your knowledge, does that product adhere? Does it go over fibrous asphalt?
Yes, it does. We did the fibrous asphalt in Cecil Township, Washington County, about 5 years ago, with the color coat of it, and it's still standing up.
Okay. Another thing, the unit pricing. I got to tell you, I have to be honest about this. I'm not comfortable with that unit pricing. So what that says is like every single thing, rather than being a lump sum, which a contractor might expect to see, everything is unit pricing. So, and one of the issues with that is a contractor always has mobilization. They have general conditions. They need to close it out. Where do they put that cost if it's not in a lump sum? Well, they have to put it into each individual unit price. And we also say those unit prices, any or all of those, can be stricken from the project before they even start. I think that's going to cause the cost to go up. Your unit price spec also calls for the contractor to essentially substantiate any increases, but we have to keep track to substantiate any decreases. So how does that work? Do you have someone there on site?
Well, generally, when we have a unit price contract, we have an inspector on site who keeps track of the quantities.
The entire time the contractor's there, you have to have a person on site watching them.
Well, generally, what we could do, generally we'll do full-time when paving operations are occurring, and we'll do part-time inspection when there's other activities that are occurring on the site, and make sure that the contractors represented in the field and our inspector get together on a daily basis and agree upon how much of each quantity is being installed. And I understand what you're saying about mobilization being spread across the unit priced items. I mean, we can talk about this at a later date,
But do you always do these unit
Yes, we do,
pricings?
sir. I mean, our Hampton Township Municipal Pavement Maintenance Program has been a unit price contract for many, many years. And that way, we have the flexibility to add or delete quantities from the contract. If, hey, somebody comes along and says, after we open the bid, hey, we want to add another road to the contract, for example, we get that with the contractor at the unit price rather than having to negotiate a price and get a change order.
I hear you in terms of a road program, because you're talking about a much larger quantity. But we're talking about a tennis court with a trench drain that's, I forget how much it is per foot. It's like apples to oranges.
Well, I mean, the tennis courts I've done in communities have all been unit price contracts, and the idea of the unit price contract is to have the ability to take care of unforeseen conditions that may arise during the construction. So, I mean, we can talk about this as with the committee in the preparation of the next bidding document.
I think this, obviously, this only justifies, frankly, the thought process I had and the recommendation I made, that it needs to be talked out a little bit more from the standpoint of what's the best way to proceed.
Right.
And you can't do that between now and the end of the calendar year. So if you reject the bids now, maybe you come back in January. I would suggest you do something in the first quarter of the year, because contractors, they kind of set up their program year.
Correct.
And if you're going to have any kind of asphalt involved at all, you're going to have some type of a bid document out there sometime by March to try and get into the system. We found that out. That's part of the problem we've run into. The other thing too, just food for thought, only because he's sitting here and I can throw him under the bus. You probably should take the opportunity to ask somebody from the pickleball players to participate in the process, because they obviously have a stake in this, and I know that one of them sitting here tonight, listening very attentively as to what.
I hear you fine.
I thought you did. Very attentively to see what we can do. But we're just not ready to go. And to your point, I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. One of the ones yesterday that we were told was, well, the USTA has grants for tennis courts. They do. Yeah, as long as you don't put any pickleball courts on them.
Well, you don't get the grants for the pickleball courts.
You don't get the grants at all.
Could
In
we
any event,
potentially get grants for the 5 tennis courts
No.
that were, no?
for half, with a complete separation.
You'd have to treat them as two different contracts.
So you did, one of the projects that you researched called for milling away all of the asphalt, and then you would expose the stone underneath. I think that might be a better option than the trench drains.
I
Right.
wouldn't disagree. I think that's something that you as a group need to talk through. Obviously, there's two things that one, we screwed up. I'll own that one. We grossly underestimated this. The second one was we didn't clearly understand the scope of the project from the standpoint of what we were hoping to accomplish for multiple players. We were just trying to get the project taken care of so people could play with it. I think it needs a little bit more time. I think it needs a little bit more input from not only the people from the school district, but from the pickleball players. I think there needs to be somebody from the township staff and council to participate in the process as well.
I think we need to know what we're getting. And the 2 tennis courts had, each had one side that was shrimped down in order to make room for the pickleball court. I was not aware of that. I mean, my feeling is, I'm happy to vote for it. I think the tennis courts and the pickleball courts need to be a good community amenity, but we should understand what we're voting to pay for.
I don't disagree with you at all, and I think the very first question you need to answer is how competitive you want to make the courts. So, that being the case, again, my recommendation at the end of the month will be to reject them. We'll have to go through the formality of actually rejecting the bids.
Okay.
And at that particular point, that'll set you up for the early part of next year to go through the process.
All right, I personally do like the idea of forming a committee of the different organizations, and Mr. Beecher, I'm assuming that you'll be able to provide a couple of very knowledgeable members to participate?
Happy to, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, anything else for community services?
No, I have nothing else, thank you.
All right, environmental services.
Thank you, Madam President. I have nothing else to add, with the exception of just thanking everybody this evening that were able to make it out to the treatment plant to take the time to tour the facility and see the construction. Thank you.
Thank you for the tour. It was nice to see how much has been accomplished since the last time we were out there.
The next one will be a Saturday morning.
Can I get a reminder Friday? Or Thursday, or Wednesday, or Tuesday, or Monday?
I can send you on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Well,
If
I
you-
mean, that'd be ideal. But I'm only asking for one.
I will personally text you for the next one.
I appreciate that.
Zoning and planning then, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. The first item I have is the Fry Cane preliminary subdivision land development. As you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, the applicants today sent over a request for an extension. They have run into some comments that will require some design changes and larger significant changes they need to address. So they gave us an extension through December 28th. So at this point, I would ask that you, in 2 weeks, table this item through that meeting.
All right. Did anyone have any questions?
Yeah, if the extension is through December 28th, our meeting that month is,
December 16th, I believe, or
You're up.
definitely earlier.
what's that?
You're up a week.
Okay, the next item is the First National Bank revised site plan. So this is the redevelopment of the former Burger King site on Route 8. As we have discussed previously, they have demolished here's the former Burger King here, and they demolished it already, and they would like to build a First National Bank here. I don't have an elevation to show you the facade, but I should have that for you at the next meeting. They showed us something at the Planning Commission, and it looks very nice. So since the time that I sent out my memo, they have gone in front of the EAC and the Planning Commission. Both boards are recommending approval. They have really addressed all of the engineering comments. There's a couple notes like that, but nothing major at all. So in 2 weeks, I will be recommending approval subject to conditions I'll provide with your next memo.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, you can.
I love the sidewalk.
Yes, I do too. We talked about that at the Planning Commission meeting, and they're actually going to shift it back a little bit so it's not right up against Route 8, but it will be, and it'll be out of the Route 8 right-of-way, but it'll go along the front there and connect to the existing ADA crosswalk that's there. So it's a very nice touch, and I think as I'm getting further into the process of our zoning ordinance updates, I'm going to be putting that in as a requirement for all new commercial properties. Any questions?
Nope. Next item, please.
Okay. The next is the request for release of funds from the Royce Executive Building Revised Site Plan. This was as minor as it gets. They had to fix a fence, which they have done. So I will have a review letter and a recommendation from Gateway for your next meeting, and I will be recommending the release of those remaining funds, which is only $1,100. The last item I have is the request for release of funds from the Bella Coop Improvement Security. They've done quite a bit of site work. The building is just about finished. I think we had our building inspector out there this week to do the occupancy. So I'm going to be out tomorrow afternoon with Gateway and PVE, and we'll do a site walk then. So I should have a recommendation for your next meeting. What?
They're going to celebrate opening up the bridge at the same time?
I would love to. I don't think I can quite pull that off, but.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna work.
So I should have something for you at your next meeting, and that's all I have for tonight.
All right. Thank you. Other business.
Besides the item on the agenda, I have a couple, which is the Halloween parade, by the way, and we would strongly recommend that if you're not actually dressing up, like I know some people sitting up here are, you come in and get a good laugh at some of your colleagues. Actually, come up and judge the actual event. We will have a number of judges that will be necessary, as we have usually about 200-300 kids. So it's a great event. If you have the time on the 21st, please stop by.
And I would just like to say that costumes are highly encouraged.
That's one of the people who will be dressing up just spoke.
From the looks I got, well, I don't think I'm going to get anybody else.
No, well, we'll get into it later. Anyway, a couple of other quick things for you. There was a meeting that was held, which I mentioned in an administrative report, with regard to the Route 8 Wildwood Road project that needs to be put on the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission tip for PennDOT to pursue it as an actual improvements project. Myself and Dr. Johnson attended that meeting. It looks like there's going to be a follow-up meeting on November 2nd. We've already got letters of support from all of our elected officials, including our county council member. The goal and objective is to try and get that onto the tip in 25 so that it could be looked at for bidding in 26, late in the year preferably. It will probably take a year and a half to complete. The thought process here is that if you can get it under construction, let's say summertime, late into 26, you complete in 27, you'll be in a position where your current debt for the swimming pool and other park amenities that we have, the last payment will be made in the first quarter, I think it's the first quarter of 27. You could then coordinate a bond issue for your share of that project along with the first responder station, all is one task. And not only will you be able to do better rate-wise, but in a situation at that particular point, you could backload the issue so the first payment wouldn't be made until the end of the 27 calendar year, or possibly even 28, depending on how Piper would do it. If you do that, then it'll be almost a wash. As your old debt disappears, which is about 1.5 million, 1.486 in the budget, the new debt would come on, but it would be even up. So the project has to be, they have to be coordinated together. I'm walking you down that path to do that. It would seem that Representative McCurry's office is kind of taking it as a pet project, which is good for the township. And I would anticipate that Brian will have a good time with it during the 24 calendar year to make it come to pass. So that's the first item. Second item is, speaking of PennDOT, gave information to Susan and Jim today. Got an email for the paving that they're going to do in the township next year on state roadways. They're going to pave all of Hart's Run, all of Montroe Boulevard, and half of Sample down to the railroad tracks. So besides the great fun we're having with Route 8 right now, those projects will be tackled next year. And I know we've known that they've been coming down the pike. We're still having problems with manholes, but we know they're coming. The ordinance with regard to bond interest is not on your agenda. And I'm kind of surprised somebody didn't say something to me about that. The reason why is because the attorney who's involved with it, Ron Braun, had not had an opportunity to incorporate the language that we talked about. There were two pieces of language. One was to lift the cap above $2 million. The second was that there was a list of projects, and then he was to write, and any other such capital projects. He will have those documents to me by tomorrow. We can, if you feel comfortable and want to do it at the end of the month, so be it. If not, you can do it in November, but either way, we will go through that process. And everything does seem to be in order with it. It is hanging out there. He ran into a few personal dilemmas and didn't get a chance to take care of it. And then just one last piece of information that you're aware of. The township is a member of the the Municipal Risk Management Insurance Trust for our workers' comp. For some reason, they sent me a letter indicating that their meeting this year is going to be on November the 2nd. I guess they used to have it as part of the League of Municipalities conference. That's why they sent it out. And they're going to be electing trustees to the trust board. So if any of you have some extra time and you think you would like to get involved with the Municipal Risk Management Trust, let me know. I will have to find 20 people to sign your petition, but I can get that done if you need it. And they are going to be, they're efficient for members to participate. So be aware that you'll probably receive some kind of contact information moving forward as elected officials from them asking if you have time to serve on it. And with that, I'm done. Thank you very much.
All
If
right.
there's any other questions?
Does anyone else have any other business they'd like to mention?
Susan does.
Susan?
You need to explain what you want to do with a truck.
Oh,
I was gonna hold off until January unless you wanna start leasing it. Is it for the utility truck with stormwater?
To lease, and we will do the lease this year. Start it now.
Okay, so,
pull the mic down.
sorry. As you are aware, for the last few years, there have been issues with when we order trucks. It's been taking about a year. We have been very lucky this year to get an abundance of trucks. Starting in the 2024 budget, I would like to lease certain vehicles. And two of them are going to be leased out of the stormwater fund, a utility truck and another dump truck that we use specifically for stormwater projects. We were able to get the one 550 in. We had ordered it last November, and we thought that that one was not going to be built, that we would have to reorder it again this year. I guess before the strike occurred, from what we understand, Ford built so many trucks that we were able to get both of the trucks in, and that one, the 550, is in. I would, since it's already in, I would like to lease that vehicle through the stormwater fund. So we will, since we already have it in, the lease will be starting in November, correct? So it's, ideally, it should have been part of the 2024 budget, but because we got it in early, we're gonna be leasing it in 2023 for a couple months.
Yeah, they could have pushed it out for us, but to Mr. Speakman's.
There would have been other legal opinions to enter into a lease that was in the 24 budget that hasn't been approved and presented. So the easier way is to just go ahead and do the lease starting in 23, and we have adequate funds in the general fund this year to be able to do that additional amount. So it won't.
You mean the stormwater?
Stormwater.
Stormwater, yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, thanks. Every once in a while. We got nice money in the operating fund too.
Okay.
So if that's okay,
Yeah.
we would like to pursue that.
So it would be on the agenda at the end of the month to approve that.
To approve it. Okay.
Entering into that lease, since it's not a budgeted item this year.
All right.
Rob,
Any?
can you get a copy of it?
I don't have the final documents yet, but I will have one.
That's what I was gonna ask. I should have said differently, I apologize. If you can get that, then we can throw it in the agenda and
Yep.
it'll make it easy.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else have any other business they'd like to add? All right. With that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening.